Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Cars and Health Bars. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing classic car restoration and preservation. Also, on the gaming topic, we're going to be getting into some of the FNAF movie that just came out this past week. With that being said, guys, let's get right into it. Hey guys, just a little disclaimer after the intro here. The episode is quite a bit shorter than normal. That is because Jordan is quite under the weather, as you'll tell in the episode, but he wanted to keep pushing through. Told him we could kind of meet it halfway by doing a little bit of a shorter episode for you guys. So with that being said, let's get right into the episode. So as you heard in the intro, I think it'd be a good episode. You know, it's not something that we particularly specialize in or kind of look for, but it's a topic that's pretty. It's got a large fan base in the automotive industry, of course. You know, especially with the older crowd. It's the restoring the old classics, man. You know, I'm sure they frown upon us turning them into drag cars, but I want to take a step back and kind of look at from their perspective, you know, what they go through restoring these cars, and maybe we can kind of better understand why they hate seeing us chop up their classic cars and turn them into, 7-second drag cars.
Yeah, I think a lot of what it boils down to is some of these vehicles that these people do these modifications to, like extreme chassis mods and stuff, really butchering the body, making it almost impossible to take back to stock. Well, if they have good parts in that car when they do that, a lot of the guys are going to be really upset because a lot of those guys just junk that stuff. I mean, some people sell it, but usually it ends up just sitting somewhere for a while, and, people want these parts after a long time.
Yeah, and if you remember back to the Brian Kimmel episode, it's on the other side of that, you've got guys who do donate their parts to, and that's what's keeping the other side of the market alive, the restoration market. I don't need all that weight. That's weight reduction for me. That my weight reduction is your restoration.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I can't look at it as a total bad thing.
Yeah, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. It really just boils down to the person, and hopefully this episode could hopefully give some of you guys some perspective that are turning cars into drag cars, because this it really helps out the older guys. I mean, not even just older guys, there's young guys that do restorations too, but it helps out the restoration guys. Instead of having to buy aftermarket knockoff seat, they could have that original seat that is true to the originality of the car.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. I think it's something that, if you don't know about doing that, you're just letting your parts sit, try and put them on Marketplace or something.
For sure. Yeah, or join like a group or something. I'm in a third-gen group. There's plenty of guys restoring. There's plenty of guys turning drag cars like me. But on the topic of parts, I kind of want to get on especially the vintage stuff. Like, I'm talking like the stuff, I mean, it kind of seems unrealistic to say stuff in the 30s, but definitely stuff in like the 50s and older. But sourcing parts is extremely difficult for something that, number one, didn't have a very high production number, and number two, we're talking about, like super old parts here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is where a lot of extreme, like, fabricators, I wouldn't know if you'd really call them people who are trying to restore, but just a really good fabricator and machine shop can really get cars back to that state. But if you don't have a team like that, then it's pretty hard.
Yeah, and I'll get into it towards the end of the episode, but that was ultimately the demise to one of my grandfather's builds, but more on that later. But that does kill it for some people too, and it kind of sucks to see. I'm sure there are people that kind of beat themselves up about, oh man, I couldn't find a matching A-pillar for this car. I had to fabricate one up. I'm sure it like hurts them deep down because it's not 100% original. But that's the reality of it. That it is it's a challenge to be able to source these parts, and not only that, but when you do find these parts, they know what they have, and they're gonna mark it up. They know their market, and they know their market well.
That's why I say, you don't gotta go all OEM unless you're really trying to do something special. But if you have a really good metal worker, you can really make stuff pretty much OEM. Like, it'll be OEM quality, no doubt,
or better.
It just won't be stamped.
You're talking about a part that was made, like so many years ago. It's there's properties to that metal that causes it to have less structural integrity. That those molecules break down, they settle, they rust. There's a lot to look into whenever it comes to using old parts. It really takes a really well kept part for it to still stand up to modern standards.
Yeah, for sure. That's why you see a lot of people going like billet hood hinges and door latches.
So whenever you think of, these classic model cars, what are some iconic kind of like cars and models that kind of reminds you of that historical significant day and time?
Definitely any late 60s muscle cars. In particular, I just feel like Mopars are the most to this because late 60s, early 70s Mopars go for so much more than their Ford and GM counterparts.
Definitely. I mean, I know they're not very hard to find, but whenever I think of a classic car model, which, it's debatable that it's classic because it really wasn't that too long ago, but if you really do look at it, it was 1980. But what I'm getting at is the IROC. That is like, whenever you think of the 1980s and you think about cars, I mean, it immediately comes to mind. It was such a staple of a car back then, the IROC Z was.
Yeah, for sure. And I like how cheap those are to find because they are a good platform.
Yeah, it does have the downfall of the unibody, and they are kind of hard to find with no rust. But, you give some, you take some. But that is a pretty. I would say it's pretty easy car to restore. There's not much going on. It's before they started coming out with like more computerized cars in the 1990s and early 2000s. So there's not really a lot going on. I guess if you did get the V6 model, you did have to deal with that. But I mean, if you just got the old 305, that's not too much going on there.
Yeah, I mean it's not gonna be hard to get engine or transmissions. And
Right.
as far as even body on something like that, it's easy to find body parts.
Yeah, there's definitely still a lot of junkyards that have those. Granted, it's not the streamlined pull-aparts, but if you go looking out in the country, out in the sticks, there's a old timer with some coveralls on, and he's got 'em.
Yeah.
He's got it, buddy. And
That buddy used to be mean in the day.
Yeah.
I had tune poured on it.
I mean, most of the time too, the parts, especially if you're looking for something kind of old like that, like 1980s, 1970s, these guys have been holding on to these parts for so long. Like, for example, I think I got a rear end, and I think I can't remember what it was, but he just threw it in for free, whatever the other thing I was. He's like, it's just been sitting forever, ain't nobody gonna buy it. So he just threw it in for free. I was like, dang, I appreciate that, That's
for sure.
And it is nice too, if you do want to look at an age standpoint of things. These old timers, they do enjoy seeing young guys getting into cars, especially like older cars, because now there's a large crowd of us. I mean, me and you included, that drive newer sports cars, and that's cool and all.
Yeah.
But you've got an old C10, I've got an old Camaro. They like to see us old guys kind of dabbling in their kind of prime cars back in the day.
Yeah, maybe one day the C10 will be ripping down the track. I foresee it.
I'm ready for it. Or just a street truck. That would be awesome.
I foresee a drag build.
Well, that actually transitions us into a pretty good talking point I wanted to get on, is preservation versus restoration, which we kind of hit on earlier with you kind of talking about the whole fabricating side of things.
Yeah, maybe we could add a resto mod in here as well. It kind of comes into play a lot now too.
See, that's what I like to see, though. I kind of that kind of bleeds into another topic I wanted to talk about with the whole technology side of things. But what me and you personally love to see in these older cars is a newer interior, dude. New interior swaps are so underrated. I feel like we're the only ones talking about this too, man. Interior swaps, it's so cool. And it's got to be really easy to do, putting the fifth gen in a third gen, or like a fifth gen in a second gen, because that's what you see so much of.
If you really did do that in yours, honestly, that would, sheesh.
If it wasn't a drag car, I probably would. I don't know if the door panels, just the plastic part, of course, aren't really that heavy. I might, I could see that.
That'd be clean.
Yeah, but man, that's one of my favorite tasteful things that show cars have is an
You already got the rear seats, dog. You ain't putting them back in.
True.
Your car was so loud when I drove it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's extremely loud.
I was like, God, I can't hear myself.
That's the way I like it. I don't like thinking when I'm driving.
No phone calls.
No, not at all. Yeah, my coworker asked me the other day. He's like, does your radio do phone calls?" I'm like, "I think so." I said, "I don't ever use it."
It sucks on mine, and mine's not even loud. They can just be like, all I hear is your cam.
Yeah, they're like, "Are you driving your car?"
It's like
What
it's
do you
picking
think?
up my engine noise or something. I don't know.
Oh my god. But yeah, I kind of want to know your take on like the pros and cons of like preserving a classic car's original look versus, like restoring it. Kind of, I guess, using those fabricated parts.
Yeah. See, if you're talking preservation as in I found this barn find, I'm literally just gonna wash it and maybe wax it, buff it,
New
but
seals,
nothing
maybe.
else. Yeah, maybe if you're trying to get driving, no new seals, but you don't actually put any new parts on it. You
Yeah.
just try and work the parts. I like that a lot. I think that's really cool to do because that's really keeping it vintage.
Yeah.
And that's typically what brings the most money at like Barrett Jackson and stuff is those old Hemis like that.
Definitely. Yeah. The old in. Yeah. I will say as a con, coming from a purist standpoint, if somebody swaps something over for an aftermarket part and it has a very noticeable difference, of course, that's going to put a bad taste in my mouth as a purist. But, it just kind of varies by person.
Yeah, so it's like, so it may not be an old car, but let's say I see a Fiat Camaro for sale, right? If it's got just like a fucking pedal commander and a short throw shifter, I'm gonna be a little worrisome.
For real. I mean, that's like seeing a 90s model import that has a manual transmission. You already know that clutch
That's
is on its
just like,
way out.
it's like you already know this thing been raw dogged.
Yeah. It's like the biggest red flag ever.
For sure. I drove one that was exactly what I described.
God. So what do you think about like implementing modern technology into like classic cars, like you said, kind of like a resto mod? Yeah, resto mod.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm a big fan of that. I think if you could do a whole Fiat Camaro powertrain pull out on like a first gen, second gen, that's cool enough.
Definitely. I mean,
You know, you gotta rewire the hardest sub to get like you still got traction control and Track, ABS. I just like that a lot.
I would say that's probably like one of the most common things nowadays is seeing like people put LSs inside these like older cars because I mean it's just like a no-brainer. There's so much aftermarket support. It's so from what it sounds like it's so easy to do. They don't have to worry about tuning a carburetor or anything like that. It's just plug and play. Buy you a Holly, buy you an LS. There you go.
Yeah,
And
it's that easy.
if you have a classic car, you probably already have money anyways, so it's not like you're really gonna be sweating it that much. Like I said, LS isn't really that expensive. You'd probably be out more on the Holly than you would be on the LS, honestly.
Yeah, probably.
So
You don't want a tuner, it's already got a preset too that you kind of get around on, and you could try to learn it yourself.
yeah, that's what I like most about Holly tuners is you can kind of like learn yourself, fuel tables and all that good stuff. I know you and you probably know about it. I know my grandfather was the one that told me, but a lot of people with these super classic cars, they have if they have frame damage or whatever, a lot of people put S10 frames underneath them.
Yeah, that's real common. S10 frames just got a lot of support, but it just depends on what it is, because older cars, like older drag cars, like Deuce Coupes and stuff, a lot of people would modify S10 frames for.
I got you.
It
Yeah,
really just came down to like, I don't know, it's kind of like subframes, like doing a whole frame, really.
plus, I mean, S10s is so easy to find. Like whole S10 frame. I mean, S10 was so like overmade. I mean, not really overmade, but
Yeah,
it
for
made a
sure.
lot of
I
them.
mean, yeah, there's plenty of them around.
As far as like the collector's market, of course, we're not in that market, but kind of what we see on marketplace and stuff like that, it seemed pretty steady in my opinion. Like it's just always those 60s cars that everybody is after. That seems like the 70s are kind of inching their way in. We could probably get our hands on a 70s roller, not too terribly cheap. But as far as like the 60s stuff, it is always sought after, especially like the Novas, the
Yeah.
Nova 2. It seems like everything is kind of, I wouldn't say hold its value, but as far as the collector's market as a whole, or the old car market, it's really stayed the same and just kind of gone up with inflation naturally.
Yeah, that's totally how it is.
You know, I don't know. I guess there'll probably be a day whenever there's no more Nova 2s and they'll be as sought after as the, R34. But in this day and age, it's really been steady, I will say. And it is kind of refreshing because it does seem like the 80s cars are kind of like I know I heard Matt say that they are getting more expensive than they've been in a long time, but I will say they just really seem stagnant. They seem to be the cheapest car to get a hold of is the 80s and 90s body style sports cars.
Yeah, I agree. Some of them are really expensive.
I
And
just
then you see some for so cheap though. It's just like it's crazy. It's really a weird market.
I just feel like the 80s and 90s body style cars are kind of in this twilight zone where they're not quite old enough to be seen as a classic car, but yet they're new enough for people to want to turn them into stuff like drag cars and stuff like that. There's so many different uses because, you look at a 60s car, to I feel like if there's a 60s body style car, it is more than likely going to be picked up as somebody's going to restore it than it is a drag car, just because not too many people want to tackle that headache. It takes a special kind of person to want to take that 60s car, gut it out, turn it into a drag car, because they weigh quite a bit, don't they? It's all metal body, everything like that.
I will say, I mean, they're lighter than our cars. They weigh as much as like I think a 67 Camaro is like 3,300 pounds, 3,400 pounds.
Oh, okay, so not too
So
bad.
that's like C6 Corvette weight.
I would say though, it takes a special kind of person to want to make that into a drag car. Whenever you look at something like a Fox body or a cat eye or not a cat eye, catfish, that could be made so easily just due to the aftermarket support.
Yeah, I like that stuff though. I really like Fox bodies. I would like to have one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would too. It just kind of bumps into us being too young.
Yeah.
You run into that thing where you're old and have all the money but no time. It kind of breaks down to that sort of thing.
I'd have a Fox body full of tubular front end, turbo in the bumper.
So, I guess to kind of wrap up this segment, I did want to talk about some restoration stories. I don't know if you have any, but I know for sure I have one that I kind of teased at during the beginning. So this is like classic car. I wouldn't say the widest market in the world because it's not a sports coupe. It is a coupe, but it's not a sports car. It's a 1950 Dodge Wayfarer convertible. So, they only made, God, I can't remember. It is so small, the amount of cars that they made of this body style. As on the convertible too, that's a whole nother thing. So he ended up buying a second one. It was a hardtop car to start kind of piecing together what he could off of that one. And that's a whole nother thing, having to buy parts cars whenever you're doing restoration. It's almost like a must, especially whenever it comes to something super old like that. But
Yeah, for sure.
like I teased out earlier, he was hard at it. He did fabricate some things. I think he had to fabricate his A-pillar and just a few things on and in, but it did end up just kind of running into the problem of, he just couldn't find parts, and the parts that he could find were either so far away shipping would be ungodly, or, they were so expensive they were unaffordable. I know he had most all the pieces to do the build with, but like I said, it was just way too much to try to get a hold of those parts, in 1950, and on top of that, it was one of the most lowest production cars that came out of Dodge at that time, especially convertible.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it'd just be a pain to find parts for. People have problems getting parts for 60s Dodges, let alone 50s.
Right. I didn't know if you had any restoration stories, especially I don't know that your dad's C10 was necessarily restored. It's just always kind of held its
Well,
own, hasn't it?
it's kind of a funny truck in a way,
Uh-huh.
because it's a 64 C10 frame with a 62 body on it. And there's quite a few differences between the frames, and the steering was a lot better on 63 and up. Or no, sorry. Yeah, 63 and up, I think.
Okay.
And Dad's is 62, so that's originally why he swapped frames, because he had a 64 truck.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So,
And parts for the 64 are hard to get. He still had problems getting parts, dude. That's why we go to swamp meets and stuff.
yeah. I didn't know if you guys restored it or not. I was pretty sure that it's just kind of always been your dad's truck. He's always kind of kept it in running condition.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's sat a lot here lately ever since. I was really the only reason I ever got running. I need to just take it and do something with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he has plans for it eventually, but
That is speaking of stories, that does kind of suck whenever you see a car just kind of, or a vehicle, not necessarily a car or car or truck, but you see something just kind of sitting, somebody says, hey, I got plans for it, and they can keep saying that, but they end up never doing anything with it.
I'll tell you what though, I think my dad is that guy that wouldn't sell his truck that he's got. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, Trisha's dad has a old CJ7 Jeep. I think it's the same body or same year as my car actually. It's like 83 or 82. And he keeps saying he's going to fix it up. He's going to fix it up. My wife is going to get it whenever he passes away, but she's like, just give it to me now. I want to get started on it right now. And he's like, I'm going to fix it up one of these days, And it just kind of sucks because she wants a hold of it so bad so she could fix it up, Jeeps are kind of crazy right now. So even the CJ7s, you even see that with the Broncos.
Yeah.
I wasn't really keeping up with the prices of the classic Broncos prior to the newer body style Bronco coming out, but I feel like it skyrocketed. I feel like you can get a classic for just as much as you could get a brand new Bronco for with how expensive they are.
Yeah, and it's the same way with the K5 Blazers. I mean, those things are pretty high too. I like those though.
For sure.
I'm a Blazer guy. I like the Bronco, but I like the Blazer.
I like a two-door Blazer myself.
Yeah, they are clean.
So, I guess with that being said, we will throw it into our gaming topic after this short break. So, if you went to theaters this weekend or have Peacock, you know that the Five Nights at Freddy's movie came out over the weekend. I, of course, was so hyped for it going into it, and the more closer we got, kind of everybody started to get a little bit more speculative of how it was going to turn out. I was super fired up. I was ready to take all the homies down to like Nashville to IMAX to go watch it. I was fired up, but it just kind of boiled down into let's just kind of see how it is first, because been hearing some weird stuff. So I bought old Peacock for $5 just for the month just to watch FNAF. It kind of justified it being I would have spent like $30 after stuff at the movie theaters to go watch it, and gas, of course.
Yeah, I mean, movies are so expensive.
Definitely, it is an experience, but if it's a crappy movie, you don't waste your money.
A crappy theater.
Yeah, that too. That's a whole nother thing. Like, you have no idea how nasty movie theaters are because the lights are off, dude. I just can't imagine what some of them look like with the lights on. It's got to be
the
nasty.
best one is in E-Town. Like the Bowling Green ones, nah.
Really?
Glasgow, nah, I'm not a big fan of Glasgow. I'll go there, but I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
But apparently E-Town's where it's at, I've heard. So,
well, might have to go check that out.
We'll have to see.
But of course, with that being said, I guess kind of a spoiler watch. I don't know what we'll end up getting into whenever talking about this, but we're definitely going to be covering a good portion of the movie. Jordan, of course, hasn't seen it, so I'll kind of be filling him in and getting his opinion, because I feel like we've both heard that critics kind of lampooned this movie.
Yeah, it seems like everyone loved it, but the critics to me.
So what I did like about it is that it had a fantastic story, and I watched Meat Canyon's video. I feel like Meat Canyon was pretty harsh on it. You know, him being, of course, a like radical horror fan, I could kind of understand, but at the same time, he's used to these like super gory rated R movies, and he does kind of mention at the end that he understands it's PG-13, and the reason is because a lot of the fans of FNAF are a varying age range. You've got people like us, and then
Yeah.
you've got like younger kids, so to get butts and seats, you gotta make it to where the kids can go see it too. They kind of teeter on the I would say they kind of teeter on the PG-13. There is like, I was honestly shocked to see blood in it. There's blood like one time, and like I think two visual kills that you see.
Dang.
Yeah, they really teetered on that, and I think there was maybe some swearing. It I was like, dang, okay. It felt like PG, like maybe 16. It had some
Yeah.
stuff in it, but actually, see, I've been reading up a lot of stuff. Despite what the critics had to say about it, Five Nights at Freddy's became a box office hit and ended up making $130 million. And this is just like,
What
we're
it
not
costs
even
to make.
we're not even seven weeks out, or 7 days out. We're still within like the week. It came out over the weekend, Friday. So, and it's already I don't know what other movies Blumhouse makes, but it's already their biggest selling movie, which is crazy. Yeah, and they've already, I'm sure, have already lined out a sequel. The movie just took off. And I think it's even like one of the biggest like turnouts for a horror movie of all time, especially a PG-13 one, which I feel like is kind of a rare thing to see, a horror movie that's PG-13.
Yeah.
So they
It's
might
like
have
Monster House or something.
yeah, they might have created their own bar for that one. There, I will say the one scene that the critics kind of are harping on a lot, and I'll kind of spoil a little bit of it, but you find this out kind of early on, is the animatronics are actually children. They're haunted by children that of course, if you've played the game, William Afton, he is kind of like, he kind of plays like a serial killer, kind of like devilish figure. He murders these kids back in like the 1980s, and he stuffs their bodies inside of the animatronics, and their ghosts are what possesses the animatronics, and they essentially do whatever the serial killer says. He's still kind of, I wouldn't say he's in control of them, but they're still kids, and they yearn for a father or parent figure, and that's what he is to them. So they do whatever he says, and if he says go kill this guy, that's what they do. So what I'm kind of wanting to lean into, the scene that the critics kind of harp on a lot is there's this scene whenever the main character's sister, she can talk to the animatronic. Well, everybody can, but she's the first person that kind of talks to the animatronics, and it's because she sees them in her dreams, which is kind of a throwback to the game, because a lot of the stuff happens in the dream world in the game itself. So she goes to Five Nights at Freddy, or at the pizzeria, and she starts playing with animatronics, because they're children too. They're just stuck inside of an animatronic's body, and they've been in there for 20 years. So they see a new child that they can play with. Of course, what would you do? This little kid, they just found a brand new friend. So they start there's this whole scene where they like build a fort with the little girl, and the critics just hate on that so much. They're like, this is so like dumb, this is so goofy, this is so stupid. But if you really dig deep, over the surface level, you kind of think man, these kids finally found like a beacon of hope, like another person, and they're just taking full advantage. So yeah, I kind of feel like the scene could have been left out, but at the same time, I feel like it was kind of necessary to kind of establish and remind the viewer that these are just children that are stuck inside of this body.
Yeah, maybe they're just not understanding the story at that point if they're going to be too critical on that, because that's a major part of the story. You couldn't just count that out of the film.
Yeah, and it just kind of goes to show the kind of depth that the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's was kind of going to, because he is like known for, like, I would say Five Nights at Freddy's is one of the deepest lore games for no reason at all.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's just like FNAF. It's like FNAF is like reading books, like, but you're
It
watching
really is.
videos about it. Like, you're just deep into lore. Like, It's like you're a monk just reading books to knowledge, dude. You like one down, two down.
Like as soon as
Yeah.
as soon as the end credits started to roll, I told Trish, I'm like, all right, I got to go watch a whole breakdown video of this movie now. Because I know
Yeah.
I missed stuff. And actually, at the end, it is so like Five Nights at Freddy's too. Because I of course missed this after the credits. I just clicked off. But at the very very end of the credits, a really like robotic Freddy voice comes over and it spells out "Come find me." You know, of course, baiting to a sequel. And it's just like so nostalgic. Like just having to kind of hang around and dig a little deeper for that Five Nights at Freddy's lore.
Yeah.
So the main story is just so I think it's just so good. It granted there's a lot of like flashes to like dream sequences, but that's kind of the foundation of the movie. So the main character, he his brother was abducted whenever he was really really young, and he wants and also like this memory haunts him of the day that his brother was abducted. He wants to see the kidnapper so bad because I don't know if that would give him comfort or if he wants to go find him to hunt him down. They never really specify that, but that's kind of the premise. Is he studies up on how to control your dreams and all that good stuff. So he every night he does what he can to relive this dream, and the story goes on a little bit, and he gets this job as the security guard at Freddy Fazbear's, and for some reason he relives that memory way more there at the pizzeria, and you later find out that's because, spoiler alert, the guy who hired him to be that security guard, he is William Afton. He's the guy that killed all the kids, and he's the guy that kidnapped the main character's little brother. And that's why he hired him to be the security guard, because he wants to kill him off, because he's starting to get on his trail by trying to seek out him in his dreams.
Dude, this is like the craziest story ever.
I'm telling you, man, it's such a good movie. I don't understand how critics can bomb it that bad. It's so good. It's almost like the
Sounds
Matrix.
like it's got a good plot.
It does. It's kind of like the Matrix mixed with like I don't know, like it's so cool of a movie, man. I'm telling you, it's you gotta watch it. It just digs so deep, and like I said, yeah, that scene is kind of like whatever, but there's just so much to look into in that movie, and even like the guy who hired him, he kind of. I will say, for a horror movie, he baits at him being the killer pretty hard. Like during the very beginning, you kind of already know he's him, because whenever he's hiring him on or during the interview, he's like, "Yeah, the pay's horrible, whatever." And then the guy's like, "Okay, why am I being a security guard at it's abandoned at this point, abandoned pizzeria?" And the guy who the murderer, the job guy, he goes, "Well, I guess the owner of the pizzeria kind of has a soft spot for these animatronics. In reality, it's because those are the children he killed, and I guess if you kind of look more into like the true crime stuff like that, a killer will hold on to stuff like trophies from a kill. And
Yeah.
that pizzeria is like the ultimate trophy. He has all his murder victims still in there. Like their bodies are still stuffed inside these suits. So that is like the ultimate trophy for him to have as a serial killer. And
That's just crazy.
yeah, it's so good. And there's like his daughter is like a cop that kind of keeps people away. And if the security guard gets kind of nosy, she's supposed to kill him, and she ends up turning on him. It's just like it's so good. And at the very end, it's so kind of nostalgic, because he is dressed up as Springtrap, if you've ever seen the third one. But he's Springtrap before he gets all decrepit and stuff. He's still just like a normal looking bunny suit. And she shoots her dad, and he goes to stab her, and the Chica's cupcake goes and bites out a hole out of his suit. Well, the suits for the animatronics are built in for two purposes. The costume can be worn by a human, and it has a spring lock system that kind of encases the person so that they are in kind of full control. But it also has that as an exoskeleton, so it can run around animatronically without a human inside. well, these spring locks were known to fail, and that's of course what happened whenever the serial killer died. Is that Cupcake bit a chunk out of his suit, which caused that spring lock to fail, and it stabbed him in his stomach, and he ultimately bled out. But he lets out a line that is very, very nostalgic in the game. Is he says, "Don't worry, I'll always come back." Alluding to a sequel. But at the very end, it kind of pans to him as Springtrap. So it's like, God, they really hit us with some sequel bait on this movie.
Oh yeah, it sounds like straight sequel bait.
So a lot of movies just like bomb so hard on sequels, but I feel like FNAF, just the way the game is, it's just like they've always followed up the last game with an equal or better game. So I feel like they've almost like set themselves up a success by getting Five Nights at Freddy's game, because it's just like it's gonna be so easy to follow up each game because there's already a set storyline that kind of did well. There was some cameos in there, actually. Matt Pat was in like the opening scene. That was kind of cool to see. Markiplier I think maybe this was the opening scene. So Markiplier was supposed to play the first security guard that it kind of just sets up the premise of the movie where an animatronic hunts down the security guard. But Markiplier was supposed to be that original security guard, but as many know, he's working on his own film right now, and of course it competed with scheduling, so that did suck, because of course Markiplier was the guy that I watched playing FNAF growing up, so that really sucked. And I thought for sure he was hiding it too, because he kept saying, "I'm not on there, guys, seriously, I'm not on there," but he was not lying. It was very unfortunate to see that, but Matt Pat did make it on, and from what I heard, he was also the same way. He's like, "Guys, I'm not on here," but in reality, he was having a cover up for the publisher, of course.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's a movie.
I wish Markiplier would have been in there. I do enjoy him.
Yeah, he's got to be one of the. Of course he's the only one I watch, but he's got to be the biggest FNAF content creator.
For sure. I don't know. He's just a ginormous content creator.
Yeah, for sure. He's got a lot going on. He's got his own movie. He did In Space with Markiplier. He's done all these YouTube Red things. He's got a podcast. He's got all this going on, man. It's like he hardly makes gaming videos anymore because he's just so busy.
Yeah.
He became a celebrity, I guess.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely a movie worth watching if you haven't already. I mean, it's so good if you haven't seen it. Hopefully,
yeah, I definitely think I'm gonna check it out.
Hopefully, I didn't spoil too much. It's kind of funny because if you really look into it, they kind of spoil it from the beginning, because in the beginning credits it shows what's known as Purple Man, which is always like William Afton in the games. He puts on the bunny suit, and as he puts on the bunny suit in the credits, it says Matthew Lillard, which is who plays the main the serial killer. So it kind of already tells you from the beginning if you pay really close attention. If you didn't know, the main serial killer is actually the same guy who played Shaggy in the original Scooby-Doo live action.
Oh, he's a G.
I know. He definitely aged, but that's I guess that Scooby-Doo movie did come out probably like 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And he was probably an adult back then. Now he's like an older man. Anyways, that's kind of, I just wanted to do kind of a fast little snippet here, hit on something topical. Like I said, if you haven't checked out the movie, definitely go do that. Like I said, man, if you don't want to go out to the movies, Peacock's like $5 for a base subscription. I just get that. Plus, I watched a few other movies that I kind of wanted to go see, like the Mario movie. I heard it was kind of iffy. I watched it. It was nice. So yeah, I would say, we're not sponsored obviously by Peacock, but $5, go watch you Five Nights at Freddy's. It's worth $5.
$1.
All right, guys, with that being said, we'll throw it to an outro, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please hop on over to our social media to keep up with us throughout the week. We love interacting with you guys and posting memes for you guys to laugh at. With that being said, we'll catch you in the next one.